If the seller is, for example, moving up or is moving out of state, they're already looking at homes in their new location online. So in other words, they're already functioning as a buyer.
It's really funny. Over the last 13 years, I've met with 30,000, 4,000 agents, and 90% of the meetings start the same way. It starts with listening to other people's problems, and I'm sure a lot of therapists listening out there and a lot of parents will resonate with this. But the one thing I find interesting is that the problem never changes, and the number one thing people ask me when they come in is, how do I get more listings, or how do I find homes for my buyers, or how do I get the listing secured? And so I wanted to really dedicate an entire episode to that and dive deeper on listings. And I read an article a couple weeks ago on Inman that was my listing isn't selling, a 12-point checklist for agents. And I thought this was so timely for this market, because at this time, even though inventory has picked up a little bit nationwide, there are still thousands of markets in the US where inventory is not there, and especially the inventory that normal people can afford, right? So, Carl Medford, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So, Carl, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long have you been in the business? Why should we listen to you?
Great question. My kids don't, so I don't know why you would. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, seriously. So I've been in the business 23 years, focused in the San Francisco Bay Area. We cover the entire region. Um, been doing it a while. We've been very, very successful as a team, and that's why I figured I should take the opportunity to put some of the expertise onto sites like Inman to try to reach out and help others. I do occasional webinars with CRS. I do a lot of teaching out of our local MLS. My goal is to give back as much as possible, because agents in this business need all the help they can get.
I love that. Well, I think too, from the perspective of, you have a problem, Carl. We talked about this a second ago. You are in the sunny state of California. You don't have hurricanes, but you have currently a tax problem. Why don't you walk everybody through what the issue that your buyers are facing right now is?
Sure. We've seen rampant price increases. If you just Google average price in the San Francisco Bay Area, you're going to get a ridiculous number compared to, you can buy a whole town in Kansas for what you can buy a single family home here. Average price point in our market for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow, nothing fancy, it's going to be between 1.6 and 1.8 million dollars. If you get across the bay in Palo Alto, that same house is going to be 3 to 4 million. So a lot of these homes were purchased by boomers 40 years ago, and they would have paid $100,000, $200,000 for these properties. And so thanks to the incentives that a seller will get in the current market, if it's a married couple, they're both still alive, they're going to get a $250,000 exemption each. So that's $500,000 that they get to deduct off the sales price. So let's say they buy it for $100,000. Now they're up to $600,000. So if they can sell their home for $600,000 or less, and these are just broad strokes, I'm not an accountant by any means, but broad strokes, they don't have to pay any taxes. However, that same house can sell for $1.6 million. And so you can take any improvements that they might have put into that property over the years. Let's just say they put $200,000 worth of improvements into the property. And for a lot of homes in that's a stretch. Now you're up to $800,000. Home's going to sell for $1.6 million. That means they're going to have a tax implication on $800,000. Why would they do that? So, that's enough taxes to fund a small African nation. So, that's obstacle number one that we're running into constantly. And so in our region, boomers are saying, hey, I really don't think it's a good idea to sell. Plus, if they sold at a really low, if they sold at and got rid of their 2.75, 3% mortgage and then turned around, the rates obviously are double. So even if they buy a smaller home, their tax implications are going to go dramatically. It just doesn't pencil past a certain point. And so there's literally no inventory in our region.
And it's interesting. So, I mean, there's a lot of areas that have low to no inventory, but you guys have a very easy to explain reason for the lack of inventory. So, what have you guys done to move past that? I mean, when we were talking before, your team still cranked out 60 sales in the last 12 months, which, especially at like a 1 point plus $1 million price point, that's some serious business. How have you guys been able to, really thrive in a challenging inventory market? Where obviously all
Yeah.
those people you help still have to pay taxes.
They still have to pay that. And so the majority of our sales currently have been people who are either having to move out, for example, moving to Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, places like that, following the tech companies out of the Bay Area. We sell a lot of probates and trusts, things like that, where people have to sell the home. And so those are the types of properties that we've been focusing on over the last couple of years, literally since the interest rates started to spike upwards in May of 2022.
So how do you specifically target those opportunities? Like how are you finding these probate sales where taxes aren't really like it's not that taxes aren't a problem, it's just that they have to sell the house, right? It's a probate situation. How are you isolating those and kind of like doing something strategic to get more of that?
We've got a very large database for influence, and so we're marketing into that on a constant basis. It's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of we've got 500 plus reviews out there online with Zillow, Google, places like that. If you find this content valuable, please go to Google, post a review. We'd appreciate it very much. We're literally so about 29,000 people in our database altogether. So we're marketing into that on a constant basis. It's literally word of mouth. We're not buying Zillow leads or anything like that. In the current environment, those just financially don't make a lot of sense. So we're making phone calls, we're prospecting, we're banging on doors, we're doing old school real estate because we're finding that really in the current market, that's what works the best.
So what I'm kind of hearing though is that you're doing all the same prospecting that really every broker is telling their agents to do, but you guys have like an interesting little twist on it in that you're specifically looking out for those people who fit the two or three situations of those who are going to sell this year, the probate situations and the moving situations.
I would say what we're doing is we're focusing on everything, and those are the opportunities that are bubbling up to the surface. So we're not just take a move up buyer slash seller in the current market. It doesn't make sense because and then another thing in California that's kind of strange is we've got what we call Prop 13, where when you buy a home, uh, the taxes are locked in based on the purchase price at the point of sale. So if you bought a home at $400,000, your taxes would be approximately $5,000 a year. That same home, we know of a situation where that same home was purchased for 400, sold for 2 million. Their property taxes on the exact same property bumped up from 5,000 a year to 25,000 a year. So again, even if you sell a home and move to a smaller property, cut your price point in half, you're still going to have increased property taxes. You're going to have increased mortgage payments. You're going to pay taxes on the previous sale. It's like, why would I bother? So a lot of these people in this market are literally fixing up the existing homes. They're going to age in place, and it's just been a crazy market. So again, going back to we're just doing all the activities that we need to, and then anything that floats to the surface, we're grabbing it. It's just primarily people that have to sell for some reason. They want to sell, want to move up. Those buyers are pretty much gone at this point.
Well, I mean, the other piece there too is like I'm hearing a message of cast a wider net,
Yeah.
right? So if you know you're in a market where there's low inventory and there are government and tax hurdles that you cannot fix as a real estate agent,
Right.
you need to cast a wider net so that you still have the opportunity to get your business to the levels that you want to and to help people. Now, I know you mentioned you have about 9 people on your team, nine agents on your team, and a couple other team members. You have a transformation specialist. And I'd love to hear more about what is a transformation specialist. I mean, are they going to help me get on TV and make my body beautiful, or what are they doing here?
Yeah. absolutely. No, in our market, because of the price point, when a buyer is buying the property, there's a couple of factors here. First of all, at that price point, they expect it's going to be a turnkey property. The second thing is if they do buy at that price point, they're not going to have any money left to go in and do upgrades themselves. So we go in and we'll say to our sellers, listen, you can sell this. Let's say you can sell for 1.5 million dollars. But if you invest $50,000 in cleaning up your bathrooms, doing a kitchen remodel, things like that, there's a potential you can get that price up to 1.8. So we're seeing a minimum 2-to-1 ratio. For every dollar they spend, our goal is to get them back $2 or more. And so the transformation specialist is a person on our team who, after we have a signed listing, goes in, meets with the seller, puts together a transformation plan, and then that person on our team oversees the entire process. Our sellers literally don't have to worry about a thing. And in our case, too, a lot of sellers are literally out of state because for trusts, things like that. So we handle the entire thing. If it is a trust situation, we'll just tell the sellers, the trustees, come take what you want from the property, and then we will leave the rest. We'll literally take it from there. So we'll go in, remove all the existing belongings, and then start bringing in the contractors to upgrade the home, and we cover the entire process. That's
I mean,
what.
that sounds amazing. I've heard of agents doing interesting things like that with contractors, but you're the first person I've heard from who has like a dedicated and I would say branded really well position on the team that they can then market to sellers as a reason to choose you guys. Because I'm assuming, I have to assume that a lot of these sellers are choosing you because you're the only option to take all their stress away and to do all the work for them.
Yes. Yeah, there are some other agents in the area that use companies like Free Model, Curbio, like that. But we literally take it further in that we have an actual dedicated person on the team that which doesn't matter what contractor we're using, it could be a full service turnaround solution, wraparound like a Curbio or a Free Model, or it could
Mhm.
just be us going in and lining up to different contractors. But we have the person on the team that literally oversees bumper to bumper. We handle everything.
Is there anything, talk to me about the buy side there. I mean, if I'm a bot, let's say the seller just needs to get out quick. They don't want to do a remodel. They don't have the money to invest. Are you guys using your transformation specialist to help kind of like put the buyers at ease to say like, hey, if you guys buy this house, I have someone that can get this property to where you need it to be. What does that look like on the buy side?
We'll do that, but the interesting thing is we also will carry the financing. We'll provide financing options so that a seller, and we hear this all the time, a seller says, well, I'm a trustee, I don't have the money to fix up the property, yada, yada. And so we say, not a problem. We can do all of the work. We can carry it through and get paid out of escrow. So that removes that initial hurdle. But specifically to answer your question, if we do sell, and you need to understand who's buying the properties that are less than stellar. In our area, uh, and normally in a normal market, you would have bottom tier properties, which would be fixers, which would be, throw a match in and run type of properties versus the high end turnkey, ready to go, completely finished properties. There's always been that middle tier of just plain ordinary. Bathrooms are 30 years old, kitchen's 40 years old, it's got bunny wallpaper on it, from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That tier really doesn't exist anymore in many markets across the country. If it does, a seller in our market's not going to buy, sorry, a buyer in our market's not typically going to migrate to that kind of property because the buyers in our market don't have a clue how to fix up a property. They don't know what end of a hammer does what. They're really good at setting up Wi-Fi systems and tech this and tech that, but when it comes to putting a hole in a wall to hang a picture, they literally don't know how. We had one person who had never changed a light bulb in their entire life. I mean, that's the kind hard to believe. But so properties that are hitting in a market in that middle tier, where historically you might have had somebody buy it and do the elbow grease and sweat equity to get it up to where it needs to be. Those properties are being sold more towards the bottom end of the market. So the people buying those are the contractors, are the flippers. And so if we can go into that middle tier and tell somebody, listen, you're not going to be able to put your price upwards towards the turnkey properties. You're going to have to drop your price more down towards the fixer. So we'll go in with a spreadsheet that says if you sell it as is, here is what you'll get. But if we can go, we've got two more columns in the spreadsheet that say, if you'll allow us to go in and invest X amount of money in your property, we can get you substantially more. And here's the low price you can expect to get. Here's the high price we would hope to get. And here's what the vector is in price. And when sellers look at that spreadsheet and see the difference that they can get, that's usually the selling point. But going back to the buyer, so in our market, yes, if we do have a buyer buying, yeah, we can go in and help them, but those buyers pretty much don't exist, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So I want to transition this to the article you wrote about my listing isn't selling, it's a 12-point checklist. So a lot of what I'm hearing from you is that obviously in California and a lot of markets, and even Michigan for the most part where I'm located, there's a lot of stuff that's just the minute it lists, it sells.
Yep.
But what I find interesting is that it sells if the agent had the correct conversations when they were pricing it and coming up with all the terms to put it on the market. We're almost, the joking term we're using here in the Midwest is a tale of two markets. You have so many people who are still watching the real estate news from a year ago with record high prices. And so they're taking the listing at a price that makes no sense. And then it's sitting on the market for 6 months. We're seeing that more in the high end, but it's creeping into the low end as well. So what I liked about your article was you kind of come up with the psychology to talk through with your sellers and to really think about and internalize as an agent of why a property doesn't sell. And obviously, there's a lot to it. There's more to it than just price. But I just wanted to kind of get why don't you walk us through what you put out there? Because I think it'd be really helpful for agents. And it'll give them ideas of what to think about as they're taking that listing and as they're kind of walking their clients through what to expect.
Well, obviously issue number one is price. And we've got some very smart, especially in our region. I mean, I've seen buyers, because we're in the Silicon Valley, we're in the tech center of the universe. I've seen buyers walk into our listings with a spreadsheet in their hands. So, you got some really smart people out there that can go to realtor.com, Zillow, homes.com, whatever the website they're going to. And all of these have automated value systems on them where you can get, your Zestimate or whatever you want to call them. If you just go onto 3 or 4 sites and compare those numbers, you can get a pretty quick and dirty idea of what any property really is worth. And so, and ironically, those numbers are showing up a lot of times right on the front page of these major sites. So it's not hard for a buyer to know what a home is actually worth. And so if a seller goes in with this starry-eyed, hey, I can get this price, buyers know better. And you've got between 10 to 7 seconds to sell your home. So if I'm sitting with a seller, I'm thinking, selling a home today is like online dating. The reality is you've got 7 to 10 seconds. They're not gonna visit the house until they've seen it on their phone. Nobody's driving around looking for open house signs anymore. Those days are gone. They don't want to waste their time, especially on weekends where the husband and wife are both working, kids are in soccer, baseball, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is. They've got no time on the weekend to waste. And so they're gonna pre-select and pre-sort the homes on their phones, on their tablets, whatever. And then they're going to go visit the homes only that meet their criteria. And so if they can see something that's overpriced from the beginning, they're going to assume the seller's unrealistic and they're just not even going to show up. So 7 to 10 seconds, make sure that price is locked in. And then the second thing is the home where they want to buy. They're not going to be driving around looking in other places. It's just not going to happen.
So let's talk about, so you mentioned some really interesting things when it comes to location, right? So we hear location, 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 and obviously there's good areas, there's bad, but you mentioned a couple items in your article related to feng shui that I hadn't heard before. Right. So what are some of these like hidden things you should look out for when you're pricing a property that certain buyers might notice, but that the seller might be oblivious to?
Well, there's going to be some things, and if you want a complete list of feng shui and what the issues are or not, whether you believe in it or not, there's a lot of people that do. And so some things you're just simply not going to be able to fix. For example, if you've got a home where you walk in the front door and you go right up a set of stairs, and there's a lot of homes like that, that is perceived by many as the luck rolling out the front door. So that's going to be an issue. If your home is on a T intersection, so if you're driving up a street coming towards a T intersection and your house is the one straight ahead, that's also perceived as a bad situation. You can't do anything about it. So you just have to know right up front, if you're in a market where that's going to be an issue, you're going to have to price accordingly. That's just the reality of it. You're going to have a smaller group of people that are going to be looking at the property. That's just the way it is. You can't do anything.
This is so helpful because, when an agent meets with a seller and they want to call the baby ugly and say like, hey, we need to price this a little bit lower, you can't just say just because. You have to have some reasons. And oftentimes, every neighborhood, most neighborhoods have homes that should be priced the same, and the seller thinks their home should be the same price as the one that just sold for a record price. But not only is it on a T intersection, but it also has stairs that are right at the entryway. Oh, and by the way, it hasn't been updated in 25 years.
Right.
So to add these little things to your list can be very, very, very helpful. Let's talk about obsolescence. So you put this really well in your article. You have functional obsolescence, and then you also have like permanent and ephemeral. Walk us through what agents need to understand about obsolescence when they're pricing out a home.
Obsolescence literally means that as the home gets older, its relevance to the current market becomes less and less. That's it simply. So, and we all know that fads change. Just look at clothing. How many of us are wearing bell bottoms these days?
Don't ask my wife that question because I think I just saw the card come through.
Yeah. I look at what I wore, back in the 70s, and I wouldn't be caught dead in that stuff today. That's the bottom line. So those shoes I had back then, with the 3-inch soles underneath them and the block toes and the bell bottoms and the paisley shirts, fortunately, those days are gone. So they're obsolete. Okay, that's the word it literally where obsolescence comes from. So a home that might have been in an up-and-coming neighborhood 40 years ago, if it still has the original kitchen, oak cabinets are so yesterday at this point in time, if you will. Golden oak, people walk in and the first thing they want to do with those is paint them. If it's got countertops that are laminate, for example, things like that. Things that used to be the trend, used to be the pattern. And we went through a phase where granite was everything that there was in the universe, and now we're into quartz. Things just keep evolving, keep upgrading. So as a home gets locked into a particular era, the price literally goes down, if that makes sense.
That does. So what are you doing with that information? So you're going through the house. You obviously want to get the listing. Mm-hmm. You notice that the countertops are old or XYZ thing is old. What are you doing with that information?
We're going in and we're just being honest with the seller, saying, and here's the thing that's really helpful. If the seller is, for example, moving up or is moving out of state, they're already looking at homes in their new location online. So in other words, they're already functioning as a buyer. So the conversation becomes pretty simple at that point. Yeah, you're looking to buy a home in Arizona. You want to get out of our area. So what are you looking for in your home in Arizona? What are the things that really appeal to you? And they're going to start going down the list. And very, very quickly, you say, okay, so you're saying you really are looking for a home that's got quartz cabinets, upscale kitchen. Well, but yours doesn't. So, if you're looking for those things, guess what? Just about every other buyer out there is looking for those things as well. So that makes it really, really easy for us to help somebody that's moving out, moving up, if you will. It's a little more difficult in the trust. At that point, the trust or probate, then it's just a matter of, do you, as a trustee, do you want to maximize the gain on this property, or do you just want to let it go? Because the price differential is going to be huge.
So let's talk about the market that we're kind of in right now. Obviously, inventory is low. If you are an inexperienced agent, but you're trying to make it work, what tips would you give those people to, I guess, kind of put your best foot forward and try to price this home correctly without having necessarily all of the experience that you have, Carl?
If you're, that's a great question. So we've obviously got people on our team that are newer agents. Some have been licensed for less than a year, and we've got some that have been in the business for close to 30. So we, as a team, have a policy where these new agents don't get to go on listing presentations by themselves. It's just not going to happen. We're going to send with them somebody on our team that is experienced. And we'll do the same thing for agents in our office as a whole. So if we've got an agent that's a brand new agent, they got a listing, they call me up and go, I haven't got a clue what to do. We'll say, no problem at all. We will partner with you, and we'll just split the listing with you. We'll come in with all of our systems. We'll come in with our entire team. We'll come in with everything, and you basically interface with the client. We'll do all the work behind the scenes, and we'll just split this with you. So that's one of the options really that's out there, and it's an option a lot of people don't consider. But if you, as a brand new agent, want to land a listing, grab an experienced agent in your office, drag them along with you, and use their expertise to land the listing. And the complaint is, well, I'll be giving up part of my commission. Well, hey, if you're going in as a brand new green agent and don't have a clue what to say to a seller, you got no listing at all. That's just the reality of it. So
one thing too, so many of us agents are at different brokerages where there's literally hundreds, possibly thousands of other agents there. We should be using that to our advantage and thinking, if we're paying all these dues to be part of this great brokerage, how are we using that brokerage's power to help us? And leaning on the experience of your colleagues is one way, as well as the statistics in their track record, which I think are huge. Right. So, Carl, if an agent listening to this show has someone who's moving out to the Bay Area, they just got a job at Tesla, Apple, or somewhere big, and they want to buy a house with you, how could they get a hold of you?
My cell number is 510-750-3300, or Carl with a C at medfordteam.com.
Yeah, and although the prices by you were expensive, all people really have to do is sell like 8 or 9 Tesla stocks and they can afford one. So it's not undoable, right?
It's not undoable. And in our region too, we've got a number of ethnicities where the parents will be living with the kids, and so they're coming in with some money to help with that down payment as well. Husband and wife are both working typically, or partners are both working. And so it sounds really strange, but there are lots of buyers for those homes in the $1.5 to $2 million range.
I think too, that's a lesson for everyone listening, no matter where you're located. Every single transaction is so different and every market's different, but people figure out a way to have a safe place to live that they can enjoy with their family. Carl, thanks for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
You're so welcome.